because of the WBO ruling for George Kambosos, which is, you know, they've ordered negotiations for the Lomachenko fight. They've ordered negotiations for the Lomachenko fight. Really, the only fight that George Kambosos is going to get away with is the undisputed fight anyway.
Yeah, this morning when I did my ShowBizz The Morning podcast, that was the part that I failed to bring up in my receipts, that Lomachenko is the WBO, officially the WBO mandatory for George Kambosos, okay? Look, with Lomachenko being the WBO mandatory, first I want to say this, okay? Bob Arum, he said that months ago, okay, when we were talking about George Kambosos Jr. versus Devin the Dream Haney. I'm talking about immediately after Kambosos beat Lopez. We were talking about his Haney Kambosos. Well, it was around then, immediately, that Bob Arum said that, hey, Lomachenko is going to be the WBO mandatory.
We've been led to believe that the WBO is going to order a mandatory for Lomachenko.
Either he has a crystal ball. Either way, I want to say this. Devin Haney didn't have a chance for this fight. He just didn't have a chance. I mean, he may have had a chance, but he didn't have a chance. You know, I've said many times, and I showed this footage where Lou DiBella immediately, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, his hands were still warm from the belts, okay? It just exchanged hands to Kambosos. And Lou DiBella, Kambosos' promoter, was saying, who's to say Devin Haney must be next? We have choices.
So we're going to check all our options out, but it's going to be about the prize. It's going to be about the money and the opportunity and the biggest money and biggest opportunity that presents itself.
You know, so immediately, it just didn't feel like, Devin Haney had that much of a chance, okay? Look, and I want to say this also. We have to be very careful as fans, all right? Because now we have this argument. If Kambosos doesn't fight Lomachenko, if he doesn't fight Lomachenko next, is it a duck? We have to, we're talking about Kambosos ducking Devin Haney. Is it a duck if he doesn't fight Lomachenko? Well, really, let's consider all this. Lomachenko has an offer for him, and Lomachenko has already signed. There were people that thought Terrence Crawford ducked Manny Pacquiao when Manny Pacquiao signed and Terrence Crawford didn't. Oscar Valdez, he signed. It got to a point where if Shakur Stevenson doesn't sign, is that a duck? So let's apply the same logic here. If you got Lomachenko, he sent this 2-fight deal, and he signed. And he's not expecting a lot of money. Then you have the big ESPN and pay-per-view and all those things accommodating for George Kambosos Jr. And he signed. Also, he's now the mandatory, officially, WBO mandatory. And when you think of him being the mandatory, and you think, well, okay, well, if he doesn't fight Devin Haney, if Kambosos doesn't fight Devin Haney for unification or undisputed, then he's ducking Devin Haney. Well, hold on, wait a second. When Lomachenko took on his mandatory, took on Teofimo Lopez as far as the IBF champion to unify, but instead of fighting Devin the Dream Haney, who was his WBC mandatory, everybody say he ducked Haney. Not everybody. A portion of boxing fans said that he's ducking his mandatory by unifying against Lopez. Well, let's have the same logic. If Kambosos fight Haney and not Lomachenko as his mandatory, would that be a duck? So we have to keep the same energy. We always talk about keeping the same energy. Well, let's consider this. If Kambosos doesn't fight Lomachenko, his WBO mandatory, the same people who said that Devin Haney, that Lomachenko didn't fight Devin Haney, his mandatory to unify, if Kambosos, just like Lomachenko, chooses Devin Haney to unify instead of his mandatory, those same people that said that Lomachenko was ducking Haney must say Kambosos will be ducking Lomachenko. It's the same energy if he fights to unify or undisputed. Same shit, different toilet. Also, those of you who were saying that Terrence Bud Crawford was ducking Manny Pacquiao because he signed and Terrence Bud Crawford didn't. Those of you who was already jumping down Shakur Stevenson's neck saying, oh, you say you want Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez, he signed. What, you're dragging your feet. Dillian White, he hasn't signed a contract. You're ducking. Well, that same energy, if Kambosos doesn't accept the offer, doesn't sign the deal with Lomachenko, who's already signed, is Kambosos ducking? I would like to hear what you guys think in the comments below. If George Kambosos doesn't fight, his mandatory, WBO mandatory, who's already signed a deal with him, is that a duck move from George Kambosos? But ultimately, here's the news. Lomachenko is his mandatory. Devin the Dream Haney didn't really have much of a chance. And like I said, I'm reporting to you guys what's going on. It's not what I'm rooting for. All right. I've said time and time again, the integrity move is Devin the Dream Haney. That's the fight I would want, because I think it's only right. Devin the Dream Haney's been in line for a shot, just like Dillian White. When it's like, yo, he's been in line. Everybody who was screaming for Dillian White against Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, well, you got to have the same energy. Devin Haney's been in line for a while now. It's his turn now, but it looks like everything is pointing towards Lomachenko, and I'm not sure how much of a chance Devin Haney really had. Okay, I'm out.